Good morning! It's beautiful Tuesday for another edition of Ano Na Bev, Best Express Views on PHLV Radio. On to our Tuesday topic, International Holocaust Remembrance Day is Friday, January 27. You might wonder what the relevance of the Holocaust is to Filipinos or the Filipino diaspora around the world. Well, it serves as a reminder, a forewarning of the risks and dangers of extremism, racism, and prejudice. It shows the devastating consequences when a government or group in power advocates and promotes hateful ideologies and targets certain groups of people for persecution. Now, why is it so important to have this knowledge and understanding? We watch about it in movies and read about it in textbooks. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers, onlookers, listeners, and subscribers, joining me on today's show is Mr. Robert Hendricks, spokesperson of Jehovah's Witnesses. Welcome back to the show, Robert.
It's a pleasure being back, Bev. Thank you very much. And your introduction was really powerful because it does remind us that the Holocaust is not simply ancient history. And it's really not simply an isolated incident, but it's the very issues that affected our dear brothers and sisters back in that time are still affecting us today in other places and could still in the future affect others.
Yes. So, Robert, why were Jehovah's Witnesses made to be an object of hatred to Nazi Germany? The Jewish people were persecuted for their race, while Jehovah's Witnesses were persecuted for their faith. Of all the religions, why only Jehovah's Witnesses?
Well, I think to understand that, we have to understand the context, the world context that we were dealing with. In 1918, Canada banned Jehovah's Witnesses. A month later, in the United States banned one of our primary books that we had published. In 1940, after the famous Gabaitis decision that upheld the right of the Minersville School District to compel young people to salute the flag, this was against Jehovah's Witnesses. There was so much mob violence around the United States that it alarmed the Supreme Court, and they took up that case again in 1943 and overturned it. But in that 3 years, there were some 2,500 instances of mob violence that included things like castration, being tarred and feathered, being ostracized, being sent out of your home community. Many thousands were affected during this time, right in the United States. Now go over to Germany, where there was a Nazi regime, a regime of what we know now of hate. And the very same issues that affected our brothers and sisters here were the issues there. And it's simply this. Jehovah's Witnesses, we are good citizens. We pay our taxes. We obey the law. In fact, obeying the superior authorities is part of our worship. But we will not give the superior authorities what God deserves. And so we will not pledge allegiance to one nation. We will not hail a leader, hail Hitler, and say salvation comes through a leader. We will not give what is worshipful devotion to the government or a governmental leader or anyone else but our God Jehovah. And so that's where the line is drawn. The early disciples, the early apostles, immediately when the Christian congregation was started, received the same kind of treatment. In fact, they were beaten, they were imprisoned, some were martyred, and their response to the superior authorities at that time, the Supreme Court of the day, the Sanhedrin, was we must obey God as ruler rather than men. And so that stand of neutrality, that stand of standing on the side of God's kingdom rather than earthly government, is a stand that makes us stand out and in some cases also affects our standing in the community.
Very well said, Robert. So how were the witnesses able to withstand and endure such atrocities? And what factors enabled Jehovah's Witnesses to survive the persecution they faced during the Holocaust?
Well, it should be said that some didn't survive, right? So some 548 were actually executed. Some 1,600 were killed. They died during the Holocaust. Many of them are documented by name. The majority of them, 539 of those executed, have been documented by name. So we know each of them. We know their stories. There were about 13 or 35,000 witnesses in Germany at the time, and about 13,000 were persecuted. 11,300 of them were arrested. So the scope of what was happening to our community was intense. It wasn't a small portion of the community. It was the majority of the community. And many suffered and have suffered irreparable harm as a result of that. And what helped them, though, is their faith. Number one, that they didn't put their allegiance to a leader. They refused to Heil Hitler. They refused to pledge their allegiance to the state. Now, looking back, that's a popular opinion, right? Looking back on history, they obviously made the right decision from everybody's standpoint, but it wasn't about everybody's standpoint. It was about God's standpoint. And so they felt right with God. When Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, "Happy are those who are persecuted for my name's sake," they experienced that happiness because they knew that despite, notwithstanding the difficulties, the pain that they were experiencing, they also were experiencing their Father in heaven being joyful over their conduct. Secondly, their love for each other. Their love for each other was second to none. In other words, they stuck together. That led to unity. There were no schisms among them. When they were put together in concentration camps, they supported one another. Even on what should have been a death march out of the camp, not one of them died as a result because they picked each other up. So that unity was powerful. And the final factor that, from a spiritual standpoint, is that they had prayer and they had Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is the most powerful force in the universe. And so that helped them even deal with the pain and the beatings. And even when our brothers were executed, being able to stand and almost as if they didn't feel that pain after some time, because they were given the power beyond what is normal. That's what the scriptures call it. All of those factors and more helped them survive.
Very well said. Now, how has such events bolstered the Jehovah's Witnesses community?
I think that I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. I made my dedication as 15, but I knew about our brothers and sisters well before that when I was young. And of course, there have been documentaries about Jehovah's Witnesses in the Holocaust. We can go to the Holocaust museums around the world and see exhibits related to Jehovah's Witnesses. We have seen in our own media on JW Broadcasting stories about it. And it's inspiring. I mean, let's face it. We're all going to experience these problems if we remain faithful. Jesus said that a student is not greater than his teacher. If they have persecuted me, they will persecute you. Paul said that all those desiring to live a life of faith will be persecuted. And so when we look at our brothers and sisters who survived and even thrived during and after the Holocaust, it's our inspiration. It's our modern day inspiration that makes the life of Paul, another martyr, James, another martyr, and Jesus real to us, because these are just mortal people, flesh and blood, who live in our time, who were able to stand up to totalitarianism and the persecution that went even to the point of death. It's an inspiration to us.
Very well said. Now, this is a very interesting question. The Holocaust happened more than 8 decades ago. And the question is, are Jehovah's Witnesses still targeted by other governments today?
Well, the answer is unfortunately yes. In small ways, back in 2000, back in actually late 1990s, 98, 99, there have been municipalities even in this country that tried to restrict our work. Of course, that was overturned in a historic decision on June 17, 2022, the village of Stratton. Jehovah's Witnesses brought that case to the Supreme Court, and we were successful. So that's a small thing. Large, though, sadly, around the world in places like Eritrea, where some of our brothers have languished in prison for without even being charged for more than 25 years. We have in Russia, we were banned. In the entire country, our activities have been banned. We are viewed as an extremist group in Russia, and our brothers continue to be persecuted. Many are imprisoned. Many have lost their homes, their livelihood, and this is happening now in other totalitarian regimes as well. In smaller ways, I wouldn't call this small for our young ones, but in South Korea, they have gone to jail because of refusing to enlist in the military, and now they are doing civilian service that is like jail. And so, yes, all over the world, we see instances where regimes, whether totalitarianism or so-called democratic regimes, are affecting our worship and our peaceful worship. It's not we're not looking to do anything that would offend the community. We are looking to be peaceful members of the community, and yet that's being attacked by governments, both totalitarian and in some ways even democratic governments.
Yes, that's, I believe there's 59 Jehovah's Witnesses from all over the world that are now imprisoned all over the world.
Well, it's actually much more than that. It's closer to 200.
Oh, wow.
And it's close to 150 just in Russia alone.
Oh,
and so, and that list is not getting smaller, it's growing. And even though we think, how could this happen? The European Court of Human Rights has rendered adverse decisions against Russia, the Russian Federation. And what the Russian Federation decided to do was remove themselves from the jurisdiction of the European High Court. And so they're not listening. And so we're sad for our brothers, but we know that just like our dear ones in the Holocaust, they are suffering for the right reason, and they are remaining joyful and getting the united support of their brothers and sisters in some 236 other countries.
Very well said. Determined they will be to keep their integrity. So, since we are on that subject, there is an excellent movie on I1TFC titled Quezons Game. The characters and the story is based on real events where the Philippines welcomed more than 1,000 European Jews from Germany and Austria, while other powerful countries slammed their doors on them. It is very important to learn about this significant world event and have a well-rounded understanding of the past in order to better understand the present and make informed decisions about the future. So when we return on Ano Na Bev after the break, Mr. Robert Hendricks will be sharing with us some post-pandemic news of events. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I'm a professional singer. That's how I support myself and my family. I'm a careful driver. The other car hit me. I ended up picking Richard Harris. Richard Harris is already an institution in Nevada. Dahil kay Richard Harris, tanggal ang worries.
I slipped. I hurt my tailbone. They sent me the bill. Si Richard Harris, siya lang ang tumanggap ng kaso ko. Tutulungan ka niya. Kay Richard Harris, tanggal ang worries.
The Richard Harris Law Firm, just in case.
Mobile Home Health, providing care in the comfort of your own home.
Serving Southern Nevada is our top priority.
And it's our greatest joy to help others stay safe and enjoy a better quality of life at home.
Because health is wealth.
Finding the right dentist could sometimes be a challenge, but Dental Care of Las Vegas is a one-stop shop for oral hygiene.
We treat our patients as family.
Affordable financial arrangements are accepted. Call today, Dental Care of Las Vegas.
There are children who've never had the experience of being a child. Bamboo Sunrise Foster Care serves underprivileged children.
We are known for exceptional standard in delivering excellent services.
You can be a parent, make an impact on a child's life.
Sa hirap ng buhay ngayon, some people don't get the basic healthcare, but access to being well and healthy is available. Silver State Health Services offers affordable access to quality healthcare.
Silver State Health Services is here for you, Capamilia.
Still with us, the spokesperson for Jehovah's Witnesses, Mr. Robert Hendricks. Always a pleasure having you on Ano Na Bev. Now, Robert, tell us about the events the organization has planned for this year, especially since the pandemic has subsided. Hopefully, it will be an endemic soon. So tell us more about these assemblies and conventions, what is involved and what topics will be discussed at these programs.
Well, sadly, in 2020, we had to suspend our in-person conventions, and that was a big hit for us because emotionally, because these larger conventions bring together thousands of worshipers who may not see each other during the course of the year. And also we invite our guests. And so we have twice a year, we have we call it a circuit assembly. We have twice a year. That's a smaller group of about 1,000 to 2,000 Jehovah's Witnesses from a region that come together in an assembly hall. And then we have our regional conventions around the world, international and special conventions around the world that bring together many more thousands. And so our conventions around the world, we have some 6,000, about 711 here in the United States alone. And they're usually in larger venues, sometimes rented stadiums, conference centers, and also some of our assembly halls. And so this month, we began reopening that. So 3 years, we didn't have these large gatherings. And now, come this month, in January, we began opening our assembly halls, which are in cities around the world. And those assembly halls are basically larger places of worship. They're open to the public, larger places of worship. And we get together and we have an entire day of spiritual refreshment on a particular theme. Our convention theme this year will be exercise patience. Right now, we're going through, let me remind myself, we're going through a series with our circuit assemblies that, if I can find it, that relates to us working to continue to have unity. And so it's a wonderful unifying factor for our organization, because even though we are in smaller congregations, we can tend to be just kind of isolated by ourselves, right? Not appreciating the fact that this is a worldwide brotherhood of some 8.7 million people in 237 lands. But when we come together in these larger groups, we realize that we're so unified and love really identifies us.
Now, why is this highlight for Jehovah's Witnesses, and why do many attend? Because everyone is invited, right? So even now, even non-Jehovah's Witnesses, right?
That's right. So it's a highlight for us because it helps us to see the larger picture, right? The larger picture isn't about us individually. If we weren't connected to a brotherhood, we would be like anybody else. We would feel isolated in our own neighborhoods with our families. And while that brings us great joy to be with our families, to have our families connected to a family, a united family around the world is powerful. And that's what these conventions do to us. They also unify us. All of us have meetings each week. We all study in the 119,000 congregations. We study the same watchtower each week simultaneously. But when we go to these conventions and assemblies, we stay on one topic. We're all taught about one thing. We see our brothers and sisters in more of a macro rather than a micro. Perhaps we're from an area that is generally of one particular ethnicity, which is typical in the United States especially, right? But then we come to a convention where we're seeing different ethnicities, where we're seeing our brothers of different race, of different looks, different even languages. And that's a real pleasure for us. And we call it the spiritual paradise because what unites us is our love for our God. And when we see that in action in these larger format assemblies and conventions, it just drives it home to us. It's an object lesson of the life that we love and the organization that we're in.
Very well said. Now, with a large influx of people in the assembly area, I could imagine an increase in traffic. Are there any impacts on the local community as a result?
Well, for sure. Our conventions have an outsized impact on the economy when we come to a city, and we could talk about that later in the year. But even our assembly halls, let me give you an example. Typically with our assembly halls, we'll have folks coming every week. So every weekend, almost every weekend of the year, there are some weekends where we keep it fallow so that we can do maintenance. But let's say in a typical assembly hall, 30 to 40 or more weekends a year, people are coming. There's an influx of folks coming from the region to an area. And so I'll give you an example. We went for many, many years into the Queen's Assembly Hall. It's an old theater, there's no doubt about it that the economic impact of that assembly hall on that community was dramatic. I can remember being young and being in that area, which had some challenges to it. And as time went on, that Main Street was thriving. And part of the reason was because our assembly hall was a buzz with activity every single weekend, and folks were patronizing these shops. In other places where people are coming regionally, like in Newburgh, New York, and in other places like Romeoville, Chicago, in West Palm Beach, people are staying in hotels in the area. People are patronizing restaurants. And that economic impact is real and can be actually calculated and has a long-term economic impact on the community. And one other thing it brings that we have heard many times in communities, it brings a family atmosphere to these areas. So when we walk outside of our assembly halls, even in a place like Brooklyn, New York, which is in a more tough neighborhood in Brooklyn, we dignify those streets with people who are smiling and mild to one another, and couples who are holding hands, and families that are walking together. And people love that. We bring a different aspect, a different feeling to a community. So yes, it has a definite impact.
And also, it's your assemblies is also in different languages, like Tagalog on February 11 in Norco, California. There's also Indian, Punjabi. There's also Chinese and other languages all over the country. For that note.
Exactly. I finally found the program for this
year.
Yes, and it's Friends of Peace.
Friends of Peace, yes.
And so that follows many other on joy. We just had one on joy. We just had one on peace. We've had many different.
Love never fails, always peaceful. So how can we?
Absolutely. And I'm talking about circuit assemblies now. The United Family.
United Family.
So these thematic days are enriching. You go there, and you're sitting, you're associating, you're eating lunch together, and you're leaving enriched. It's more than just information. It's an experience in spiritual immersion.
Yeah. Knowledge is power, ladies and gentlemen. Mm-hmm. When knowledge builds up, love buffs up. So, okay, thank you so much, Robert. We appreciate your time and effort, and thank you for that. Jehovah's Witnesses are known for being peaceful people, not extremism. So we don't promote
And if I may say, Bev, just one last thing.
Yes.
One thing I failed to bring out during the Holocaust Remembrance Day discussion is that Jehovah's Witnesses were the only ones who could sign a waiver and say, I renounce my faith, and get out of the concentration camps.
Of the firing squad.
That's what made them unique.
And different from the rest.
Because we don't grow up Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay. We're not born a Jehovah's Witness. We make that dedication personally at some point in our life, and very, very few renounce their dedication to save their life. And so that made us different in terms of those who were persecuted in the Nazi regime.
Wow, what an integrity keeper. Determined they will be to keep their integrity. Thank you so much, Robert. We appreciate your time and effort. Your input was truly educational. I am grateful for the valuable information you share with us on Anuna Bev, and I'm looking forward to see you again soon on timely topics that shed much light on this dark world that we are living in. So thank you so much, Robert, for joining us.
You're very welcome, and thank you, Bev.
Quezons Game, the movie, is currently available to watch on iWantTFC with a subscription. Also included on iWantTFC is all of your favorite TFC shows. And coming soon to U.S. theaters is Family Matters, a Philippine family drama. The film was directed by Noel Naval. Ayan. So we will be giving away movie tickets on future episodes of Anuna Bev. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Anuna Bev and iWantTFC so you don't miss out. Subscribe na! Thanks for watching!
I'm a professional singer. That's how I support myself and my family. I'm a careful driver. The other car hit me. I ended up picking Richard Harris. Richard Harris is already an institution in Nevada. Dahil kay Richard Harris, tanggal ang worries.
I slipped. I hurt my tailbone. They sent me the bill. Si Richard Harris, siya lang ang tumanggap ng kaso ko. Tutulungan ka niya. Kay Richard Harris, tanggal ang worries.
The Richard Harris Law Firm, just in case.
Mobile home health, providing care in the comfort of your own home.
Serving Southern Nevada is our top priority.
And it's our greatest joy to help others stay safe and enjoy a better quality of life at home.
Because health is wealth.
Finding the right dentist could sometimes be a challenge, but Dental Care of Las Vegas is a one-stop shop for oral hygiene.
We treat our patients as family.
Affordable financial arrangements are accepted. Call today, Dental Care of Las Vegas.
There are children who've never had the experience of being a child. Bamboo Sunrise Foster Care serves underprivileged children.
We are known for exceptional standard in delivering excellent services.
You can be a parent, make an impact on a child's life.
Sa hirap ng buhay ngayon, some people don't get the basic healthcare, but access to being well and healthy is available. Silver State Health Services offers affordable access to quality healthcare.
Silver State Health Services is here for you, Kapamilya.